of the gates. I'm going to touch on that, but we start with the marquee performance from yesterday's slate of games in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs routed the Las Vegas Raiders 41-14 yesterday on the road at Allegiant Stadium. And this is the interesting thing about the Kansas City Chiefs. Since that loss to the Buffalo Bills 38-20 several weeks ago, it feels like ages ago, right? Everyone wrote off the Chiefs. And they've continued to kind of be in this weird offensive funk. Offensively, they're not gelling. They've been in this slump. They've been putrid defensively. Mahomes and his chemistry with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, everything's been a little bit off kilter. They haven't been as harmonious as we've been accustomed to seeing over this team the last several years. And to be honest, that trend seemed to have continued through the first 58 minutes against the Green Bay Packers last week. And this is what I said last week, and I'll repeat it again. There was one critical play in that game against the Green Bay Packers, besides the fact that they came away with the win. Again, through the first 58 minutes, it's the same sluggish, anemic offense that had been just perplexingly struggling in ways that we had never seen them falter before. And then on one key magical play, we saw Mahomes pull off a vintage Mahomes-like play. 3rd and 10 to ice the game. You needed a first down. There were still 2 minutes left in the game. And if you don't collect the first down, you give the Packers a chance to go down and win the game. You're only up by 6, 13-7. And, of course, Mahomes did Mahomes-like stuff, scrambled out of the pocket, was being chased to the sideline, and executed an off-balance strike to Tyreek Hill for the first down. And from that point on, I said, oh, he found something now. This was going to unlock, once again, the potential of Patrick Mahomes and this Kansas City Chiefs team that we had grown so accustomed to. And it's not always about whether or not the result is what you'd like it to be, but it's the manner in which you're able to execute that said result. Because the moment that Patrick Mahomes recaptured that Mahomes-like magic, that Mahomes magic was on that specific play. He had completed other passes throughout the game. That wasn't his first completion. But something mentally flipped once he was able to execute that pass in that moment, in that fashion. We see this in the NBA with great shooters all the time. Shooters can have a shooting slump, and then all of a sudden, all they need to see is one ball go through the basket, and mentally, they're back in tune. Steph Curry, he can make 100 straight free throws. Hell, he can make 50 free throws, but make them poorly. And once he gets one perfect release off his hands and he knocks down a free throw in the exact precise release and manner that feels best to him, well, now it's lights out. And that's the same thing with the Kansas City Chiefs here. And that's why I wasn't surprised that he did what he did yesterday, because there were legitimate people. There were pundits. There were experts that were questioning Mahomes. They were questioning the mortality of Mahomes' talent, the Chiefs as a team. And there was pessimism starting to permeate this locker room and throughout NFL circles, kind of like an airborne virus. And people were seriously wondering and concerned and genuinely worried that this team was going to flounder completely. And what I said last week, and I'll echo the same thing today, is I never wavered on the Kansas City Chiefs. Granted, there were times when I was concerned about the way that they were playing, but I said last week that at the end of the day, they were winning football games. And that trait in and of itself is extremely hard to do. The teams that they were losing to were all playoff caliber teams. They weren't actually losing to any bad teams. It was just the manner in which they were playing and the types of passes that Mahomes was completing and executing weren't to the highest standard that we were accustomed to knowing with this group. But I never backed off of my appreciation and my affinity for the Kansas City Chiefs. I never just thought, oh, well, let's just dump them to the wayside because this team is done now. And yes, it was a little bit inexplicable to start, but the manner in which, again, they were able to then dispose of the Las Vegas Raiders in the second half was extremely impressive. And Mahomes got back to Mahomes-like stuff, 35 of 50, 406 yards. It was the first time that he's thrown for over 400 yards all season. 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. So he was turnover free, 9 for 15 on third downs. They were 3 for 4 in the red zone. Completed 70% of his passes, and more importantly, the offensive line was outstanding. They didn't allow him to be sacked the entire night. He incorporated his offensive pieces like we're accustomed to seeing. Travis Kelce had 8 catches, 119 yards. Tyreek Hill had 7 catches for 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. Hell, Darrell Williams had over 100 yards receiving to go along with a touchdown. That's the type of contributions that we were seeing. And defensively, to limit the Raiders to 14 points and only 7 points in the second half, again, given how putrid they were defensively to this performance, it speaks volumes. It absolutely speaks volumes. And all of a sudden, you look up at the standings, and by hook or by crook, the Chiefs are 6-4. They're only a half game back of the second best record in the AFC, behind the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills at 6-3. And they're tied with the New England Patriots for the 4th best record in the AFC at 6-4, which is hard to believe. And they're atop the AFC West. They're atop their own division, which, again, if we kind of do a little replay back to a little time lapse back a month ago, people thought they were dead in the water. Oh, the Chargers have it in full control. Yeah, it's going to be easily won by them. Oh, the Raiders can do it. Chiefs, what do you know, are now atop their division. Now, next week against the Cowboys, that's obviously the true measure. That's the true big test that lies ahead for them. So we'll see if they've come all the way back or if they will kind of get a little bit humbled again. But to win on the road versus the Raiders in this fashion in the second half is extremely telling. And I thought that once Mahomes completed that pass to Tyreek Hill against the Packers, that was going to inject this new life, infuse this new confidence into this locker room that had been missing for several weeks. And that defense feeds off of the execution of the offense. That defense feeds off of how well the offense plays. The offense executed perfectly last night, and we saw that manifest in a great defensive performance. Now, from the Raiders' perspective, I'm not going to glean too much from them. The reality is the amount of internal strife and conflict they've had to deal with, the distractions, and just all the negative attention being highlighted on this organization, from the John Gruden firing resignation to the Henry Ruggs incident to the Damon Arnett. They've had to deal with all this clutter and still manage to focus on football. And at the end of the day, they're still 5-4, and that honestly should be commended. So the amount of distractions they've had to deal with, I'm not going to scrutinize them every single week, given what they're having to endure, because it is just unfathomable. And quite frankly, it's just not fair for these guys to still be held to the same standard when all these off the field issues circulating their organization. It's just kind of ruining the chemistry and the continuity and everything involved with this organization. So they're still 5-4. They still have a very live chance to make the postseason.